What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben, and welcome back to The Bench for a brand new episode here on our MC205 by Hasegawa. Today we're going to be moving on and hopefully get quite a bit done and get this thing looking like an airplane. So last time we went ahead and worked on the fuselage, put everything together. We have most of the cockpit finished up, just a couple of things left to do on that. We have a little bit of seam work to do as well. We've got the guns on the wings. We replaced those with hypodermic needle tubing, so those are a little bit more in scale. And of course, we went ahead and added in a lot of wires and different details there under the main engine, right there in the landing gear bay. So we're moving right along. And I think what we're going to start out with here today, guys, is we're going to work on the fuselage details. We need to go ahead and add in a little bit extra detailing here and there. We need to assemble the wings, get those tail planes on, as well as getting the wings attached to the fuselage. Of course, some seam filling, some sanding. We're going to use some super glue to go ahead and come in and take care of any of the openings or potential seam issues. We're just going to go ahead and get this thing looking like an airplane. So let's go ahead and jump on in there, guys. Let's start working on those details and get this party started. All right, everybody, we are back, and so far so good. The aircraft is more or less looking like an airplane, so I'm very happy with how it's turned out. So far, the part fit has been excellent, so I really can't complain. So we're going to move on now, though, to some of the extra details, such as the radiator and the oil coolers that are attached up to the undersurface of the cowling. Now, the radiator itself is multiple parts, and we have to go ahead and build up the front and the back of the radiator itself. We have to put on the outer housing, install the front front louver and the rear flap that goes ahead and opens and closes. That's going to be a little tricky because the details show a couple of little areas here and there that we need to add in some details, but we'll get to that in a little bit. First off, we need to go ahead and work on these oil coolers. And this is actually a very simple process. We only have two sides and a center little round circle that has a little bit of detail on it that acts as a vent, like a metal mesh. Now this of course would have been replaced with photo etch. Had I went ahead and had a photo etch set, I'm pretty sure it would have been replaced. But you know what, we're going to go with it. We're going to just use the plastic parts. And I have noticed comparing these to my references, these are not exactly correct. That front mesh should be much closer to the very front of the oil cooler itself. So that should be in a little different position, but we're not going to fool with it. We're just going to go with it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to clean up the parts. We're going to get everything glued into place. And then we can come back after it's dried and we can sand it down and taper everything in. These are actually pretty well detailed for being the size and shape that they are. There's not a lot of parts or pieces to these little subassemblies, but what is here I think passes nicely. Unfortunately, because of the design of these, we need to go ahead and probably fill up or at least sand down the front lip of this to go ahead and try to eliminate that seam line, because there is quite a prominent seam line. But I think we can go ahead and make that work. We just have to be very careful. Go ahead and get some filler in there or maybe some glue and kind of smash those parts together. Then we can come back and sand it down. Now, of course, since those parts are now dry, we're going to come in with our jeweler files and just take a little bit off here and there. There is a tiny seam, of course, that runs from the front to the back on both sides. That's easy enough to remove. That's not a problem. The real trouble comes with the very lip of it. There has to be a bit more work on that to make it look like one solid piece. I'm sure Hasegawa could have come up with a better way to do this, but you know, it's not too bad. Just a little bit of careful sanding, a little bit of careful filling, and I think you're good to go. So let's go ahead and just wrap this up. We need to get back in to go ahead and installing these into the bottom of the aircraft, plus work on that radiator, add in some of the actuators and some of the supports for the rear of the radiator, as well as getting in there and getting the wings sanded down and fill any gaps we might have. There are a few gaps here and there, nothing too crazy, so a little bit of Mr. Surfacer, wipe it down with some acetone, and I think we'll be ready to go ahead and call it quits for today. So let's get back into that time lapse. A little bit more work to do, of course. Let's push on. Let's get all the details in there and we'll see what we come up with. And we are back, everybody. As you can see, the 205 is looking like an airplane. We've got the wings on, which is actually a beautiful fit. We've got the rear tail planes. We finished off the cockpit. We've got the undersurface of the cowling done. We've got the radiator done. And yeah, it is not too shabby. It's a really, really great fitting model kit. We finished out the last little bits here in the cockpit. Went ahead and sanded down the seam lines. This thing is looking pretty cool. The radiator was a little bit on the difficult side simply because I wanted to add in more detail. Did a little bit of work in here. And as you can see, I stretched some sprue and I added in a support and I added in some actuators. It's not perfect, but I think it gives you the right idea. Plus, I went ahead and drilled out this front vent right here with a very tiny drill bit. And I went ahead and put in the splitter plate that sits right in the front of the air intake. That is honestly very simple to do and it really adds a little bit of character. But other than that, went ahead and came in and we sanded down all the seam lines, did a little bit of sandpaper as well as jeweler files, and yeah, looking pretty good. We did go over this several times. You really can't tell because you can see a little bit of a seam there, kind of faint, but once I get primer on this, we'll figure it out if we need to come back in and do a little bit more work. I love how everything goes together. All the wires and the details, it's really turned out beautifully. Of course, we still have some parts like the propeller, we have the landing gears we have to contend with. We can get those built up. In fact, next episode, I'm pretty sure we can go ahead and start off by masking off that canopy and then coming in with some primer and some paint. But until then, guys, thank you so much for joining us here on episode number 4. Make sure to go check out Joe's channel. His aircraft is coming along beautifully. And until our next episode, you know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. We'll see you back here for another exciting adventure here with the MC205. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.